Hello everybody, this is the Hollywood Rabbi. I'm here in front of the illustrious off-Broadway shoe warehouse on the corner of Mansfield and Sunset Boulevard just to bring you this week's Torah Portion. And this week's Torah Portion is called Shmot, which means the names of the families of Jacob, the 70 relatives that came from the land of Canaan to the land of Goshen, Egypt, to reside there because of the famine. And Joseph did to help save the country from the brink of famine by having them save up the grain during the years of plenty so that they had enough food to eat and to keep that whole Near Eastern region supplied with food through the 7 years of famine. This week's Torah portion, there's a new king of Egypt, and he becomes fearful of the Jewish people. He was actually the first person to refer to them not just as a people, but as a nation. And up until this time, we talked about the Jewish people as being members of a family. You know, the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then we had the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. And at this time, the king of Egypt became very fearful of the Jewish people. He was afraid that they were becoming too numerous and that they were one day going to take over. So he decided to enslave them. And he tricked them into labor, and he stopped paying them, and he forced them into really hard labor. And he was trying to break up their families as much as he could by giving them a lot of this hard work to do, and it was busy work just to wear them down, to try to attack the morale and to psychologically bring them down and physically break their bodies with this difficult work. And then he had them all become bricklayers. He did what he could to really destroy what the strength of the Jewish people was their family. And he would split up the men and have them sleep in the fields at night. They wouldn't be able to come home to their families. And he did all sorts of things. Finally, he decided to resort to infanticide, where he was going to kill all the male babies, just because he was worried that one day somebody would come up and rise up against him. And you know, there's a saying that says, if you resist, it persists. And Moses' mother had an idea that she would put Moses in a little basket and put some tar underneath it so that it would be waterproof, and sent it out, and she followed it with her daughter out on the Nile River. And the princess, the king's daughter, was bathing, and she saw this baby, and she fell in love with him immediately, and she wanted to raise him as her own. So now you have a potential redeemer of Israel living in the palace. Strange turn of events. What made Moses a very, very different leader is that he actually had this great empathy for these people. I mean, here's somebody who had it made. He was living as a son of the king. He was living with all the luxuries in the palace, being treated as a son of the most powerful ruler in the world. And he's worrying about his brothers and sisters that are working in this hardship as slaves. And at one day when he was older, he noticed that a taskmaster was beating one of the slaves mercilessly, and he felt that if he didn't intervene, this man was going to kill this Israelite slave. So he defended him and he killed the taskmaster. But he realized that he needed to run away himself, because now he would be tried for murder. So he had to leave, and he left everything behind, and he went to live in the land of Midian. He met his wife by helping her. She was being harassed by other shepherds, and then he came to her rescue. he was always fighting for the rights of others. And one day he sees the burning bush. And Moses had a great connection to God. He was able to talk directly to God, and God came to him and told him that he needed to go back to Egypt and help free the Jewish people, because there was a covenant between God and the Jewish people. And God is not just an entity that's there and creates the world and leaves it the rest. He interacts. And he was going to defy the laws of nature using the plagues and the miracles in order to save the Jewish people from this terrible fate. And the Torah is probably the first major book from a religion that talked about fighting against the government. And here is a small group of persecuted people. They were slaves, and talking about them rising up against the most powerful empire. It was unheard of. People of faith believed they were able to change the course of history and the course of nature by aligning themselves with God, so that right would triumph over might. And if you look at the other, religions that came before it, the Babylonian religions and the Egyptian religions, the rulers were like a god. They were put in power by God. They were like the Pharaoh was considered half man, half God. But the Jewish religion, they believe that everybody has a little bit of divine in them, and they had a special relationship, a covenant with God, and God was intervening because he could see it wasn't fair. So things again are put into place, and at the end of the Torah portion, Moses returns to Egypt to talk to Pharaoh about freeing the slaves. This story gives people who are fighting up against incredible odds, it gives them hope that one day, even though they're outnumbered, they could be victorious. It doesn't matter how powerful you are. If you stand up for what's right, you live a life of goodness, eventually you will be victorious. This is the Hollywood Rabbi wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom, a happy, healthy weekend. Also, this is Martin Luther King's birthday this weekend. We're celebrating. Martin Luther King stood for the rights of all and fought against the powers that be. We owe so much to this hero of human rights in this country, and we've inspired people all over. We commemorate that day with a lot of gratitude. Continue on with fighting for the rights of those who can't always speak out for themselves. Because to answer the question that was posed in the beginning of Genesis, yes, we are our brother's keepers after all. This is a Hollywood Rabbi wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom, a happy and healthy Shabbat, a wonderful holiday weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week as we continue the story of Moses and the people of Israel. They transformed from a family to a nation that eventually helped humanize the world with the great gift of the Ten Commandments. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye, and God bless you all.